sure it's going. Okay, so this will be just a recap of the cylinder and then stage one of the sphere. So last time you built a cylinder, we wrapped it around a tube, and you can do that with or without a tube. And this is an example. This one's not decorated. It's still really, really soft. I need to go in here and smooth out the inside. And then add decoration or make it interesting. And then I'm going to, after I've finished all the work I want to do on it, I'm going to wrap it up and keep it leather hard until it comes to school. And once it comes to school, I will dry it out and fire it. Once it's fired, you can add a finish to it. This is watercolor and shoe polish finish and you can see the whole piece is textured. I think that was actually a texture off a ceiling light cover from school. There was a broken ceiling light cover. Kind of looks like an onion bag texture. So anything you can press in while it's wet, you can make a texture with. You can add on. This is watercolor and shoe polish also. Red and orange with a light brown shoe polish. And these will be just like little pencil cups. So that's where we're headed with these. But you cannot paint them or do anything to them until they're fired. So we're going to have a drop-off day where you drop off all your work, and then I'll let it dry and fire it. And then we'll have a pickup day where you come back and pick it up, or I can deliver if I need to. And then we'll have, then you can paint it. And on your pickup day, I'll give you paints to work with. Okay, so for today, we're working on a sphere today. So I'm going to take my clay out of my bag, and we used 2 sticks last time to make sure it was slicing evenly. Okay, I'm going to bounce this on the table just to make sure it's flat. It's probably going to shake the video. Okay. So why am I doing that? I need this side to be really flat against the table so that I can cut it easily without having thin spots. So I'm going to use my wire. You can use magazines or paint sticks or anything you can come up with. If you're using paint sticks, make sure you get the 5-gallon ones that are thicker. The little normal paint sticks, the little normal paint sticks won't work. I'm going to take my wire, I'm going to pull across, press and pull the whole way. So I'm pressing down to the sticks. If I don't press down to the sticks, then it'll raise up and I get an uneven thickness, which is not what we want. Okay, so there's one slice. You can see it's got some holes in it. Because I'm doing slab drape, I'm just going to set that aside, and I can still use it even though it's got holes in it. So probably about 2 slices would work to get the sphere covered. And it is hard to pull that through. So it's a little stiff. Okay. So now, before I do anything else, I'm going to make sure my clay is protected and put away. So I'm going to put the bag back on, seal it back up. Best way to seal up clay is to make sure all the air is out, then twist it and sit it on the twist. People think, like I'll use a rubber band or a twist tie or a clip or something. That's not ideal. So I'm just going to squeeze all the air out as I can. You might even spray a little bit of water if it's starting to dry out, because you've got to protect it. You've got to keep it wet to be able to use it. So then I'm going to twist, and I'm going to sit that twist underneath the clay. I'm going to move over here and put it off my work area. So you sit it on the twist so it'll stay closed. Okay, so I'm done with these. So you have a small work area. You can work on any flat surface as long as the clay doesn't stick. Fabric in between is good. Canvas is excellent. All of that works well. most countertops are too non-porous, so things stick to it. So I have styrofoam balls in my classroom. This is about the size I'd like for you to use. If you're not using a styrofoam and you want to wad up paper because that's all you have, that's fine too. It'll work just fine. I want you to make a sphere about the size of your fist. Whenever you use a form, you're going to have to cover it with something so that the clay doesn't stick, so that you can get this out. Once again, you can totally use just wadded up paper and make a sphere and tape it and make a sphere. So I'm going to grab a couple more sheets and I'm going to show you how to do it with just wadded up paper because that's probably what you have at home. So I've just got some scrap paper from old handouts. So I'm just going to wad up some paper until I get about the size of a fist. Any which way you want to do it. You do want it pretty compact. And you do want it pretty sphere-like. So as much like a sphere as you can get. And then I'm just going to put a couple pieces of tape just to help hold it together. You don't want a ton of tape because, again, we want to be able to get this out. And the tape will sometimes stick to the clay, making it harder to get out. So there's just a wad of paper made into sort of a sphere. Okay, so now I'm going to take my clay and I'm going to use this one piece with holes in it first. And you can see the backside's all lumpy. That doesn't really matter. I may not even need all of these slices, in which case I'll put it right back onto my clay, right like it came out. Slab against the big side slab. So yeah, this is going to be a lot. So I can just use that. And you're going to drape over the sphere because if you try to do it like this, gravity is not your friend and then it keeps wanting to fall off. So make gravity your friend, push it together, and then you're going to cut darts. So a dart is a term used in sewing. It's basically an upside down V shape. Yes?
Hello?
Yes.
You're off screen.
Okay. Better? Tell me if I'm there.
Oh, yeah. That's
Okay.
good.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for letting me know. Okay, so I'm going to make a cut, an upside down V shape, and take that out. And that will just close up. I'll push the thicker side under and the thinner side over if there is one, and then just smooth it. And what I'm going for is a sphere, right? And so now, same over here. Just kind of squeeze it up together. Cut your dart, which is upside down V. Just take out that extra clay. It's always better to take a small amount out than too much. Keep in mind, pinky to thumb thickness. So that's the kind of target we're going for. You're gonna work not to add clay, other than like a slab on top of slab is a bad idea. So instead of adding, I'm gonna drag the clay that's thicker into areas that are thinner. Anytime you add slab over slab, it can become problematic. They should really only overlap by about a finger width. If I have that's a really thin spot, I can take a tiny bit of clay and just press in. And because we're working soft, we don't have to slip yet. Scoring's helpful, but slip, not so much. You don't have to. So, take my scoring tool, scratch into the edges because I know I'm going to cover this. Okay, I'm going to take this piece. So I think this little square might do it. And you can see the thickness. This is a pretty ideal thickness. So I'm just going to add another slab, just kind of see where it fits. Okay, scratch around the edge. Okay. Again, connecting it down instead of trying to hold it up because gravity, right? Gravity. So make it easier on yourself. That's overlapping a little bit too much, so I'm going to take that off. Now, mine is not going to look like Jennifer McCurdy's beautiful pieces that she makes. Neither is yours, and that's okay. Just know I'm showing you professionals, and ours are going to look like ours instead of like people who do this for a living. Okay, so I'm going to take the rib, and I'm going to bend it in the shape of a circle and move the clay that's already there. Okay, so I got one little piece that I need to fill in. So because I switched to a smaller sphere, I didn't need as much clay. I don't want you to get much smaller than this, though. Okay, so here's a really thin spot. So I'm going to just score and add a tiny bit of clay. It's super thin. It's not the same as adding a whole slab over. It's just patching just a small amount. So I wouldn't patch much larger than that. And then I'm going to have to make sure it's compressed. So there's no air in between and it's really well attached. Okay, so I got one more piece. I'm just going to cut off another little piece. So I didn't even use a full slab. So this is like almost there but not, so I'm going to flatten it just a little bit. And score the edge. If in doubt, make score marks deeper and more in more places than you think you'll need them, especially on this. Okay, so now I'm going to take this and go over, patch over, and it's a little too long, so I'm just going to break it and put it over. Now you might be able to have one slab cover it, and that's fine. If you can do that, go for it. So I've still got a little area left. So I'm going to take a little bit of this. Patch that over. Okay, so that's basically the sphere. Now from here, I got to make it look good and make sure all the seams are connected. I've closed it. So now I just need to work. If I were to work on this to make it look really good, which I will after I leave you guys, I'm going to guess maybe 20 minutes or so of giving the surface attention and making sure it's round and making sure it's smooth and making sure the seams are closed. You can see I'm not taking off clay when I do this. I'm compressing clay. It's also starting to get more like a decent clay covered sphere. You don't want to add water, but when you get really close to the end and you're like, I just have just a few spots that I want to work on, a barely damp sponge. I mean, this is barely damp. I'm squeezing it and I maybe get a couple drops out. Then you can go over it with just a damp sponge. Now, we're going to need this to get leather hard so that we can take it apart. So you need to monitor the drying. Good news is, working at home, you can probably monitor the drying a lot better than you can at school. So I'm just going to keep working that surface. Again, probably about 20 minutes for this step. When it's leather hard, when we're sure it's dry enough to hold itself up, then we're going to make a cut. So this is getting there. Does this make sense? We're going to make a cut all the way around and take it apart, get the paper out, and put it back together. And that's going to be the skill set challenge that I'm looking for, is can you take apart a leather hard sphere and put it back together and still have it be a sphere? In order to make that happen, this has to be dry enough to where it can hold itself up without bending. So leather hard is still wet, still cold, but leather hard is such that if this slab were leather hard and I picked it up, it would not bend like that. It would just hold its shape. So that's the dryness. So if you pick up a leather hard piece, it's not going to bend. So even though this is on a sphere, it's still not going to move. So when you cut it, it's not going to move that easily. It's not going to distort the shape. So any questions about the sphere? Okay, I'm going to turn off the camera, and then you guys can ask more questions or we can do whatever we need to do there. So this is it for today. So all of this gets put back in the bag. You could use the small bits in your slip cup. This gets wrapped up. If you're going to not be able to monitor the drying, I would wrap it loosely, like maybe like that, with just a little bit of air getting in underneath. So you could just like leave it on your clay board and just kind of make a tent over it so that it gets air, but it's not like, if you wrap it like this, it's never going to dry out, right? So, which is what we want a lot of the times. But this, we want it to dry slowly. So if it were mine and I was working in my house, I would leave it uncovered. I would go to work on 5 other things, set an alarm, check back an hour, check back an hour, check back an hour, and until it feels stiff. And it might take overnight, but the point is to keep checking on it, because if it gets too dry, you're starting over. There's no way to fix it. So you don't want it too dry too soon. Is failure and doom. Nobody wants failure and doom. So now I could also add a texture at this point if I want to add texture. It's not the time for carving, but it is a good time to press in texture. So once I get it really, really even and nice and round, patch in any little small divots that won't close up, then you could add a texture right now. And it could be all over texture, it could be a pattern. Pressing in is fine right now. Carving out, not so much. Carving out happens at leather hard. Okay, so any questions at all? So every time I'm scraping like this, I'm not taking off clay, I'm compressing clay. So it didn't come off on my rib. Compresses. So that's kind of what we're going for. Okay, I'm going to shut off the video, and then we can have a discussion, if as needed, about what you're doing.